Well, my name is Josh, and welcome to WHIMS. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a horror film called Talk to Me, it came from Australia and it came from a group of filmmakers who originally had their start on YouTube. They had the YouTube channel Raka Raka, and of course, they gave birth to this film. And I just want to say before I start this review, I want to say a massive congratulations to this YouTube channel because they absolutely have done something really wonderful in the sense that they've been able to get a film made and actually brought it out there and actually introduced it to people, and now it's gotten a lot of good reviews. So I want to say big congratulations to Raka Raka for their work on this particular film. The filmmakers who are in charge of that channel have actually made the film, and of course they make that channel. So I want to say a big congratulations to them. They've done incredible work with this film. And let's talk about Talk to Me. So when a group of teenagers find a embalmed hand that's been encased in sort of like ceramic glass or plating, they begin to make a game out of it called Talk to Me, where the recipient has to basically hold the hand and say, I talk to me and I let you in. And the rules to this game is it basically possesses you, and if the ghost or the apparition is inside you for longer than a minute, they'll want to stay. So you have to basically have a cut-off point. If it's longer than a minute, then you're kind of in trouble because they'll enjoy it and they'll have fun, but then there comes a time when the spirits will have to, eventually take over. And the problem with these spirits is they're kind of a bit mischievous, and if they actually do get the insight to actually want to kill someone, want to actually stay in the human body, they'll actually try to do anything they'll have to in order to stay in, including commit murder. And that's where the real conflict of the film essentially takes place, where these teenagers try this game, and one of the teenagers does something very stupidly wants to hang on to a particular spirit that they want to talk to for longer than a minute, and this leads to all kinds of trouble. So this film came out of nowhere for a lot of people. In fact, this came out of nowhere for me because I didn't know that this film was going to be any good. I thought it was going to be like another one of those, standard horror films with a lot of jump scares. But little did I know that this film was going to be as good as it was. In fact, this film owes more to the horror films of the 70s, like The Exorcist or Carrie or The Shining or Don't Look Now, more so than, say, a film that's actually set in the 70s, like The Conjuring. Yes, The Conjuring does have a lot of those elements where it's more character-based, but with Talk to Me, it feels like it goes more deeply into the psychology of the characters. Like, say, for example, our main character of Mia is a character who is by and large a troubled teen. She is a character who is a bit of a loner, she's a bit of an outcast, and when we first meet her, she is essentially going through heavy bereavement. She's just lost her mum and she's dealing with the grief. She's staying at home with her father, who is very kind of distant with her, and she's trying to deal with it effectively. So she does have ways of dealing with it. She does, go out with friends at, her school, but she does feel kind of like a bit of an outcast because her friend, who is Jade, and her little brother Riley, they go to this party, and that's where the hand is officially introduced to them. So in a moment of peer pressure and in a moment of feeling kind of alone, and she kind of, basks in the glow of getting all this attention, all this positive attention, and all this cheering and chanting, she decides to volunteer for this game called Talk to Me, where she, touches the ceramic hand and she says, talk to me. And then eventually she says the magic words, I let you in. And that's when she, gets possessed. And that's where things kind of almost get very much it goes all tits up from here, pardon my language. But what's very interesting about this premise is it is an allegory for addiction, and it is an allegory for kind of this very almost this unavoidable draw that you have to these things. And I think this film, I know this is going to be a very controversial phrase, but I think this film really does a good job of depicting how teenagers are and how teenagers can, really quickly and very easily get seduced to do terrible things through things like peer pressure and, just feeling alone or feeling like a little bit of an outcast and a little bit of an outsider. Better than most films involving teenagers, because often teenagers, they tend to get turned on by the tech side of things, like going on stuff like Grindr and Instagram and Facebook, but they don't really tend to talk about the inner landscape of a teenager and what actually goes on in their heads in order to get to that stage. Whereas with Mia, you get an entire portrait about who this character is, what she's going through. She's effectively grieving, she's lost her mother, and when she's playing the game Talk to Me with her friends and her friend's little brother, Jade, her friend's little brother, Riley, it goes immediately out of hand the minute Riley, being possessed in his possessed form, starts to talk to Mia personally and calling her things like me, which is obviously what, you know, her mum used to call her when she was alive. And he was saying things like, oh, I'm so proud of you and I'm so sorry, I didn't want you to hate me, and all of that. So she immediately breaks the rules. And the rules with Talk to Me is you can be possessed, but you can't be possessed for longer than a minute. And when it does start to go over a minute, it begins to really kind of become quite dark. And they know the rules. They know the rules that they know right off the bat that if you stay for longer than a minute, they'll want to stay and they'll want to keep control of you. So even though I could very easily say this is stupid, why these teenagers doing this, why they're doing something so reckless and so stupid, ask yourself that question again. They're teenagers, and teenagers tend to do very stupid things, even though we like to admit to ourselves we were never like that as a teenager. We always were. We always are when we're a teenager. We're always doing stupid things. We're always doing reckless things. We're always doing things in the heat of the moment because we think it will make us feel good, or we think it will make us popular, or it will make us have a large group of friends, or whatever. So we like to do this stuff, and at least with Mia, you can have the excuse that, oh, she's talking to her mum and she was very close to her mum and she's still grieving. And that's what leads into all this escalation of terror and all this escalation of heartbreak. This film was amazing. I have to say that this is probably one of the best films I've seen in a very long time, because this film really got me invested in what was going on. And just earlier this month, in the build-up for Halloween, I watched the film The Exorcist. It's not my first time watching it. In fact, I would probably say it was my third time watching it, because I first saw it when I was 14 years old, and I had a bit of a sick day off school, and I was watching The Exorcist along with Stand By Me, and it was a pretty good day off, all things considered, despite the fact that I was ill with the flu. But yeah, I really do like the film, and having watched it for the third time in probably a while, I do think that that film is really great, because it does a very good job of really putting you inside the heads of the characters. With The Exorcist, it's about Linda Bernstein's character kind of in a very desperate situation where she's trying to protect her child and she's trying to make her child feel better. But all the medical in the world, all the psychologists in the world can't help her, and no one can help her. And she can't actually physically help her child with what's going on with her. So she literally, is desperate. It's desperation. Whereas in the case of Mia, it's the same thing, where she's totally desperate. She's totally hanging on to this idea that she wants to be with her mother. She wants to reconnect with her mother. And that entire thing is the emotional crux of the story. And I really do like the fact that in the beginning of the film, before they're even introduced to the hand and all the things that entails, Mia and Riley, whilst, Mia's driving home with Riley from school, they're singing Sia's Chandelier, which I immediately thought, I love this film because they referenced Sia, and I love, Sia's songs. I really, just find them incredibly, catchy and incredibly, inspiring. And I really do think it's amazing. But the scene with they're driving along and they stop when they see a kangaroo injured in the road, and they have this in the moment thought that they just want to kill it. They just want to kill it to put it out of its misery, like run it over, or they can call the RSPCA, but it will take ages. And I like the fact that they really do kind of thinks about it for a second, but then she decides not to, because that really plays a very big role in what happens at the very end of the film. What actually happens throughout the film is that she is very much a very clear, level-headed person, but when it comes to the crunch, she will often do things in the moment that do end up becoming quite detrimental in the long run. So I really do like the fact that they do kind of set up that she is prone to making the right decisions, but she will often, for the sake of someone's suffering or for the sake of someone's peace of mind, she will often just walk away because she doesn't want to deal with the pain, she doesn't want to deal with whatever it is. And I like that idea. I like the idea that she is someone who does care about other people and she does think about other people, but she can, like a lot of people at the age of when we're teenagers, do tend to often throw caution to the wind or do stuff recklessly and in the heat of the moment because that's what makes us feel good, or that's what we like to chase the rush. Like the idea of, when she first gets possessed, she says, it's like I was glowing, and it's like everyone, all eyes were on me, everyone was cheering, everyone was laughing, everyone was, cheering and saying, go on, do it, do it, do it, and things like that. Like, they really do want to chase that high. And that's the same thing with any kind of addiction, is you want to chase that high, you want to chase that element of, oh yes, let's keep going, let's do this, let's do that, because it's fun, everyone likes it when we're like this. And all of us have been that way when we're teenagers, or even when we're adults. We do kind of fall into that that old trap of, oh yeah, we're going to keep doing this even though it's probably bad for us, because that's what we do. We like to do that because we like to hear our names being chanted, or we like to hear people say things like go on, go on. We like to hear that. We like to hear that because it gets our blood pumping, and we get really good, and we feel good, like we can take on the world. And that's what Mia feels in that moment. And she feels so alone because her best friend is also dating her ex-boyfriend. And there's that moment where when Hayley, one of the friends, is asking who wants to volunteer, there's that brief moment where the camera lingers on Jade holding hands with her ex-boyfriend, Mia's ex-boyfriend, Daniel. And she sort of looks down, and then she looks back up and she says, I'll do it. And it's like, she immediately wants to feel wanted. And even before the party begins, Hayley says to Jade, why did you bring her here? She's such a downer. Like, I don't want to be around her, and things like that. And she goes, oh, she doesn't have many friends, and she's just lost her mum. And she goes, oh, well, she gives me the creeps anyway. And it's like, people don't like her. People find her weird and odd. But that's just because Hayley's a bit of an arsehole. And all the characters are kind of like a bit of an arsehole, but I really do like the fact that they really do focus on the humanity of these characters, as opposed to, oh, they're annoying teenagers. Because even though I love my Friday the 13th and all those other slasher films that you can imagine out there, where they're often just portrayed as human walking, talking meatbags, what I really like about certain horror films is when they portray people as people and not just, victims to add to the body count. And that's what I like about Talk to Me, is that they're people first and they're victims second. And it really makes you care when things start happening to them. And the film that I want to talk about the most, that does have a lot of similarities in regards to the fact that they put character over horror, is also Hellraiser. But then again, I'll always sing, Hellraiser's praises, because I think Hellraiser is a genuinely good film, and I really do think that a lot of people should see it and give it a chance. The classic 1978 film, as opposed to, any other sequel or remake. And I kind of do feel like I am kind of open to a sequel to this film, but I'm also worried that it will fall into the Exorcist and Hellraiser category, where the more sequels they make, the more shittier it will get. And I'm hoping that they don't do that with this film, because it was such a great start. It did such a great job of really kind of encapsulating what goes on inside a teenager's mind, what propels teenagers to make these stupid, reckless decisions, and what makes them human and what makes them tick. And I like that fact, and I like the idea that they keep playing with that idea. And I like the fact that these characters don't mention sex. They don't mention sex at all in the film. There is this one instance where Riley hints at the idea of Jade doing something inappropriate with Daniel, but part of me feels like her boyfriend at the time. But it never fully feels like, oh, they're talking about sex all the time. They're talking about doing this, like, oh yeah, we're totally going to go and do it now. They're not doing that stuff. They're not like the teenagers in Friday the 13th. They do genuinely feel like they are characters who are just starting out. And whenever they talk about relationships, they always talk about something like, oh, we haven't even kissed yet. Or, oh, we remember that time we held hands, and things like that. That they always talk about in a very innocent way, that they haven't quite broken that mold. And I find that really refreshing, in the sense that it does feel almost like a very kind of, it feels like a very innocent film, even though there are a lot of very upsetting and very effed up shit in this film. You do genuinely feel like these characters are genuinely interesting people, and they are people that are literally still starting out, and they are still, for lack of a better word, they still are, young and inexperienced in a lot of things as well, which I really do think is interesting. And even though they do allude to stuff like sex and things like that with the adults, it's mostly adults that allude to sex. Like, there's that scene where the mum goes, my daughter's vagina, prohibited. And it's like, only in moments like that do they actually feel like, oh yeah, they are referencing the fact that they still are teenagers, but the teenagers themselves never discuss adult things, which I think is very interesting. Or adult things like that, like, sex or anything like that, or sexuality. And I really do like that. I like the fact that that's the element of the film that I highlighted the most. But this film is incredible. I would definitely recommend you guys to see it. It's a fantastic film. I'm open to the idea of a sequel, but I don't want them to make continuous sequels. I don't want it to turn into the Halloween or the Friday the 13th or the Hellraiser of modern horror. I don't want them to keep making sequels to the point where it gets tired and it takes a good concept and just completely utterly just lets it waste away. I don't want that to happen, so I'm hoping that they make a good start on the sequel, but then I'm also kind of dreading it. I don't want them to keep making these films because I want them to know that this film was good and this film is one of those lightning in a bottle scenarios where it will never happen again. And I hope that they could have learned that, oh yeah, we have good stories to tell. But again, I just want to have a huge congratulations to the YouTube channel Raka Raka and the creators of that channel for making this film, because they did an absolutely incredible job, and it's literally inspired me to be more creative and actually get back on with my novel and actually keep writing. Because honestly, if they can do it, we can all do it. Am I right? Like we can all make our novels or make our motion pictures that we really want to make, or the films that we want to make that we want to show the world one day. We want to do that. And we want to be capable of doing that. So if Raka Raka can do it, then I can too. So that's all I have to say for Talk to Me, and I hope you're all having a very good day. This has been Josh of WHIMS Would Musings. I hope you're having a very good day. Take care. Bye for now.